Judge exposes bias, 500 fine for a black man reveals his amazing journey as a federal prosecutor. Marcus Carter had always known that the world could be unfair, but nothing prepared him for the moment he received that ticket. The officer's face was cold and unyielding as he handed over the slip of paper, a 500 fine for rolling through a stop sign. Marcus felt the weight of it. The crumpled bill in his pocket felt like a ball and chain. He shook his head, disbelief coursing through him. This was happening in small-town Maplewood, Iowa, and it felt personal. At 28, Marcus had a dream bigger than his small convenience store job. He wanted to be a federal prosecutor, just like his mom, who had poured everything into his education after serving her country with honor. He could still hear her voice echoing in his mind, teaching him about integrity, resilience, and justice. "You're gonna make it, Marcus. Just keep working hard," she'd say, but that was before the fine. At family dinners, the tension between them was palpable. Her disappointment felt like a dagger twisting in his gut. Each evening spent behind the counter weighed heavier. Regulars came in, got their snacks, and left without a second thought, but Marcus felt their stares sharpen focus on him, a subtle discrimination brewing beneath the surface. Even his friends offered encouragement, but deep down, anxiety bloomed like a weed. Could he bridge the gap between his aspirations and his family's struggles? One night, after an exhausting shift, he made a decision. He wouldn't let the fine go. He'd fight it, hoping to prove not just to his family but to the entire community that he was more than what they saw. He gathered his documents, almost feeling the fire in his belly, convinced that this was his opportunity. But soon, reality crashed down like a hammer. The local authorities dismissed him. The doubt crept in again, gnawing at his insides. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Facing an empty courtroom, he stood, heart racing, words welling in his throat. He told his story, the struggle of his upbringing, the values instilled by a mother who fought for her country and community. He painted the picture of Maplewood, where dreams clashed against barriers veiled in ignorance. The weight of his words seemed to hang in the air, forcing the audience to connect with his pain and ambition. But in that moment, as eyes widened and murmurs rippled through the crowd, Marcus realized this moment was bigger than just him. It was a chance for change. Would they choose to see him? Would they confront their biases? The tension coiled tightly, ready to unravel, as the collective breath of the community hung in the air. The question loomed: would they rise, or retreat into comfort? As the last echoes of Marcus's voice faded in the courtroom, silence enveloped the space like a heavy blanket. Every pair of eyes seemed locked onto him, searching, scrutinizing. It felt as if the very walls were leaning in, waiting to see what would happen next. Would they validate his pain, or would the echoes of indifference drown him out? A woman in the front row shifted uncomfortably. Her eyes glistened, and Marcus sensed that his words had pierced through the noise. He held on to that thought tightly, hoping it would sustain him, even as doubt danced in the corners of his mind. Injustice is a burden we all share, he continued, finding his footing. When one person falls, we all lose a piece of ourselves. It's time to lift each other, to truly see each other. His voice grew stronger, and he could feel a shift in the atmosphere. Maybe this was it. Maybe, just maybe, they were ready to listen. The judge, an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, leaned forward. "Mr. Carter," he said. "Your testimony today raises important questions about our community. I appreciate your courage in sharing your story." His voice was steady, but Marcus could sense the storm behind it. This was not just about him anymore, it was about all the people in Maplewood who had ever felt the sting of bias, the weight of social injustice. The murmurs began to rise again, a tidal wave of emotions flowing through the room. Some frowned, deep in thought, while others nodded in agreement. The tension hung thick, but there was a glimmer of hope, a crack in the armor of complacency. "I'll be honest," Marcus pressed on, his pulse quickening. "I'm scared, but I want to fight for something more. Not just for myself, but for every kid that drives through this town, dreaming of more than what they see." His heart raced as he recognized his own fear mirrored in faces all around him, some shared sorrow, some anger, others confusion. But united in this moment, a shared heartache began to beat louder. Then came a voice from the back, a familiar face. It was his mother, eyes fierce, her presence an anchor amidst the storm. "You speak the truth, Marcus. Nobody gets to define who you are. We are more than our struggles." Her unwavering support sent warmth through him, wrapping him in resolve. The judge's gavel sounded, cutting through the tension. "Thank you for your passionate plea," he said, looking at Marcus directly. "I'm willing to reconsider the circumstances surrounding the ticket. But understand, your journey doesn't just end here. It's a fight against entrenched systems. And those systems are complex and will not change overnight." Marcus swallowed hard, feeling the weight of those words. What would it take? How deep did the issues run? He felt a daunting task ahead, yet the flicker of hope ignited. As they left the courtroom, the air outside felt different. There was a buzz of conversation, murmurs of support. They were questions and plans in the making. His mother squeezed his shoulder. "You're inspiring them, Marcus. You're lighting a fire." But inside, uncertainty brewed as he glanced back at the building where he had laid bare his vulnerabilities. Would the spark grow into something meaningful? Or would it fizzle out like so many hopes before? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the town square, Marcus knew this was just the beginning. He took a deep breath, contemplating the next steps. With everything on the line, he was determined. What did justice really mean, and how was he going to fight for it? The answers seemed just out of reach, taunting him like the wind rustling through the trees. They were whispers of a challenge yet to come. The next morning was bright, but it felt heavy for Marcus. The sun streamed through his window, illuminating the stacked papers on his desk. Notes, legal references, contacts. He was ready to turn his painful experience into action. But as he stared at the clutter, the magnitude of what lay ahead settled in like a thick fog. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Jordan, his friend from school. "Dude. Are you okay? Heard what happened yesterday. You were amazing." Marcus smiled, but it was faint. "Thanks, man. Just trying to figure out what's next. Meet at the park. There's been a lot of talk about your speech. People want to support you." As he lingered on the invitation, a mix of excitement and fear swirled within him. He knew he couldn't face this alone. His heart pounded in his chest as he texted back a quick "Yeah, I'll be there." When he arrived, the park was buzzing. A crowd had gathered, some familiar faces, others new. His mother was already there, chatting animatedly with a group of neighbors. Seeing her smile provided a sense of calm amidst the storm brewing inside him. Jordan caught sight of him and waved, gesturing him over. "Everyone wants to hear your thoughts. You ready?" "Not really. I mean, I don't know what to say," Marcus admitted, feeling the weight of expectation settle on him again. "You've already said a lot. Just share what you feel, man. They're here for you." As he stepped into the center of the gathering, all eyes turned to him. He felt both vulnerable and empowered. "Thanks for coming, everyone." His voice faltered for a moment but took on a steadier tone. "Yesterday was just a beginning. We can't let this trial be a one-time deal. We need to talk about what's really going on in Maplewood." People nodded, some murmured agreements, and he drew strength from their support. "My ticket was just a symptom of a larger issue. I'm not the only one facing biases here. Many have felt the same sting, but too few have spoken out. A hand shot up from the crowd. It was Mrs. Johnson, an elderly woman who had lived in Maplewood for decades. "You're right, Marcus. My grandson was wrongfully accused just last month." Too many voices are silenced. Her words radiated truth, reverberating in his chest. "Exactly," he said, heart racing again. "If we don't stand up and share our stories, nothing will change. It's like a wall has been built around us, but it's time to tear that wall down." The crowd erupted into murmurs of agreement, anger bubbling to the surface. He continued, driven by their energy. "We need to form a community group. Gather stories, share experiences. We need to show everyone that bias is not just a personal issue, it's a systemic one. And together, we can fight it." As cheers rose, Marcus felt a jolt of adrenaline. For the first time, he could see the stirring of change, like a spark flickering to life. But within his heart, a twinge of worry lingered. Could they keep this momentum going? Would they truly rally around this cause? "I'll be coming by your house again," Jordan called out from the back, enthusiasm evident in his voice. "We're all in this together. You've lit a fire in us." As people started to shout out their stories, Marcus felt himself getting lost in the collective anxiety and hope. There was so much to address, to confront, and yet a part of him feared being swept away in the tide. He opened his mouth, ready to respond, but the sound of vehicle engines echoed in the distance, growing louder. "What's that?" someone murmured. As attention shifted to the street, Marcus scanned the scene as a convoy of police cars rolled towards them, lights flashing, sirens blaring. His heart sank, realizing the reality of the battle ahead. Just as the ripples of hope began to spread, a shadow loomed, one that could either crush them or ignite their resolve even further. As the officers stepped out, the crowd fell silent, tension swiftly thickening the air. What were they here for? Would this be a confrontation, or a chance for dialogue? As the first officer approached, the question hung in the air, thick with anxiety. Marcus could feel the atmosphere shift. The vibrant energy of the crowd he had just ignited was suddenly shadowed by uncertainty. People glanced at each other, silent questions crossing their faces. Would the police support them or shut them down? The lead officer, a tall man with a serious expression, stepped forward. Everyone held their breath, the tension palpable. He flipped open a notebook, scanning the pages, seemingly dismissive of the sea of emotions gathered before him. "Marcus Thompson," he called out, his voice slicing through the silence. Marcus stepped forward instinctively, heart racing. "Yes, that's me." The officer looked down at his notes, then back up with an emotionless gaze. "We received reports about an unauthorized assembly. You are to disperse this gathering immediately." A murmur rose from the crowd, protest bubbling up as anger began to replace the hope that had just sparked. Jordan moved closer to Marcus. "We can't just let them shut us down," he whispered urgently. "Listen, everyone." Marcus raised his hands, trying to calm the growing storm. "Let us hear them out. We have a right to be here, but let us keep the peace. We don't want to escalate things." The officer folded his arms, waiting. "I advise you to comply. This is your only warning." "Why are you here?" someone shouted from the back. "We're just trying to talk about the things that matter." The officer's demeanor hardened. "You're drawing attention to a scene that could disrupt the community. It's best if you save these conversations for a more appropriate time." But it felt like a giant no, a wall rising up against Marcus's attempt to break through. Anger flared among the crowd, disappointment tangling with their resolve. Marcus felt the urge to fight back, yet he also recognized this was a moment for strategy, not aggression. "Look," he began slowly, "what we're discussing here affects us all. We're building a support system. Why wouldn't you want to hear that?" The officer hesitated, his expression softening ever so slightly, but he quickly masked it. "I can't let this gathering turn into chaos. Disperse, or I'll have to take action." Marcus stepped forward, heart pounding. You don't understand. This isn't just about us. We're addressing real issues, issues that impact this community. We're coming together for change. Jordan joined him, supportive and steadfast. We're just trying to advocate for those who can't advocate for themselves. The officer held his ground, but there was a flicker of humanity behind his eyes. Could he be persuaded? Look around, Marcus continued, gesturing toward the crowd. These people are here for the same reasons I stood up yesterday. For justice. For truth. Can't you see that? Can't you choose to be a part of this conversation? Behind Marcus, the crowd was stirring. Voices began rising in support. We're not breaking any laws. Someone shouted. We have a right to stand here. More people stepped forward, echoing Marcus's sentiments. The energy was alive again, racing toward a cohesion that felt undeniable. The officer remained unmoving, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes. I'll give you a few minutes to decide. But any sign of disruptiveness, and I will act. Hope mingled with fear as the officer stepped back, giving them space. The moment stretched, the crowd buzzing with nervous anticipation. Jordan turned to Marcus, a bright spark in his eyes. You did it, man. You ignited their passion once more. Marcus nodded, partially stunned by what was unfolding. But will it be enough? As they debated their next words, a woman from the crowd, Teresa, stood up. She was shaking, but her voice rang clear. We will not be silenced. We need to come together, not only for Marcus but for everyone who has ever faced bias. The collective voice grew stronger, a chorus of determination that pushed back against the officer's demand. It felt monumental, a turning point. Marcus felt a swell of pride. He sensed that this group could be the beginning of something transformative. But a whisper of doubt still lingered. What would happen if they were dismissed? Would the police escalate the situation? Just then, a second officer approached, his demeanor softer, as if he wanted to engage. What do you need from us to continue this conversation? He asked, voice steady but not hostile. Dictates of fear clashed with an opening for dialogue, and Marcus realized the moment hung in a delicate balance. Suddenly, he felt the weight of his decisions beyond this moment. Would he push for a productive discussion or rally for their rights, risking everything? As that question loomed, Marcus's heart raced at the possibilities ahead. The tension in the air crackled like static electricity. Marcus glanced around at the crowd, their faces a mixture of hope and desperation. Teresa's words had ignited something deep within all of them. They were ready to stand their ground, and Marcus could feel the collective heartbeat thrumming in the rhythm of their unity. That he turned back to the softer officer who had approached. We want to be heard, he began, his voice steady despite the thunder in his chest. We need a space to share our experiences and ideas. Not just today, but moving forward. These conversations can fix and heal. They can bridge gaps. The officer nodded slowly, contemplating. And if we allow this? What's the plan to ensure it remains peaceful? A weight settled over Marcus as he considered the question. He knew they could not promise peace like a fragile glass ball, but he could offer something more substantial, a commitment to dialogue. We need a structured approach, Marcus proposed, words tumbling out with urgency. Let us organize team leaders for discussion groups. We can ensure everyone speaks respectfully. We want to highlight our struggles, but we also want solutions. Together, we can show the community that all we seek is understanding. Jordan chimed in, imagine how powerful it will be for many voices to find clarity together. This can become a space for learning. The officer's brow furrowed in thought. Behind him, the lead officer seemed less than convinced, shifting his weight from foot to foot, impatience radiating from him. But the softer officer appeared intrigued, perhaps even swayed by the palpable energy of the crowd filled with hope and resolve. All right, the softer officer finally said, his voice softer still. I'll take this back to my superiors. We might be able to find a middle ground, but you must promise to adhere to rules. No violence, no threats. A roar of agreement erupted from the crowd. Marcus felt the warmth of pride flooding through him. This wasn't just a win for the day, this could set a precedent, a chance to build a community rooted in understanding. The lead officer gave a slight nod, the tension easing, though he still looked skeptical. But remember, if anything escalates, I'll have no choice but to take action. Understood, Marcus replied, determination in his eyes. He didn't want to concede to fear anymore, he wanted to embrace the power of what could be. As the crowd cheered, a wave of relief washed over Marcus. He caught Jordan's eye, and they exchanged a glance that said everything. This was just the beginning, but that relief was fleeting. In the corner of his eye, Marcus noticed a figure detaching from the crowd. It was one of the community members, off to the side, looking anxious. He saw that her hands trembled as she reached out to another bystander. Marcus moved toward her, curiosity pulling him closer. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern tightening his throat. She looked up, eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I'm just worried. What if this becomes just another promise we can't keep? What if we're fooling ourselves?" Her words hit Marcus like a punch. The weight of her fear was real, and it resonated deeply. He felt that same fear creeping in, a shadow lurking behind all their hopes. Would this truly lead to the change they all needed? "I promise," he whispered, urgency filling his voice. "We'll fight to make this happen. We won't let these conversations die out. This is our moment." Behind them, the crowd continued to buzz with excitement, but Marcus felt his heart racing again, caught between hope and uncertainty. Would they be able to follow through? Could they really forge a path out of the darkness? Just then, a loud shout broke through the intensity, drawing everyone's attention back to the front. A different officer was rushing forward, panic etched on his face. "Get back!" he yelled. "We have a situation." As the crowd dispersed, Marcus felt fear and adrenaline spike. What was happening? What could possibly unfold next? His heart leaped into his throat. Would this moment of hope turn into chaos? Would the conversation he fought for unravel? The night felt heavy with unanswered questions, and Marcus knew that whatever happened next would reshape everything he had fought for. What awaited them on the edge of this unexpected disturbance? Marcus scanned the crowd, heart racing, as people turned toward the source of the commotion. The air was thick with confusion, anticipation hanging like a curtain between their hopes and the unknown chaos ahead. "Please, everyone, step back," the officer shouted, urgency fueling his movements. His gesture wasn't just toward the crowd, it felt like a push against everything they had just built in that moment. Marcus could see faces tinted with fear. Some people instinctively clung to one another, as if merely holding on would shield them from whatever was coming. "What is going on?" a voice cried out from the far side, panic rising. The officer didn't respond. Instead, he moved toward a group of officers forming a protective barrier, facing the direction of the disturbance. A shiver ran down Marcus's spine. He could sense the shift in energy, and it made the air feel electric once again. What had started as a hopeful rally for conversation was spiraling into uncertainty. "Is it about us? Are they going to take action against us?" Jordan whispered, gripping Marcus's arm tightly. "I don't know," Marcus admitted, unease churning in his stomach. He turned, scanning the crowd for signs of distress or fear. People were visibly shaken, nerves radiating off them like heat waves. He could feel the camaraderie fraying as tension pulled and tugged at the edges, threatening to unravel their unity. Suddenly, another shout echoed. "Let him go." It was a voice Marcus recognized, one of the young men from the community. He was stepping forward, defiantly challenging the officers. "You can't just arrest people without any reason. We're here for a purpose." The young man's bravery ignited a mixture of admiration and dread within Marcus. He admired the courage, but he also understood the implications, the potential for violence, misunderstanding, or worse. Don't. He yelled out, urgency filling his voice. You need to step back. This isn't the way. But the young man was already locked in confrontational stance, fists clenched. Officers moved closer, tension escalating like a live wire. Marcus felt Jordan's grip tighten, a shared understanding of the thin line they danced along. As the officers surrounded the young man, Marcus saw the anxiety turn into anger in the crowd. People began to yell, demanding explanations, urging compassion. Stop. No. Came the cries, while others tried to reason with the young man. He knew they had fought too hard for a peaceful dialogue to let frustration boil over into chaos. Listen. Marcus stepped forward, raising his hands, seeking to anchor the shifting tide. We wanted to show that we can talk, that we can find solutions together. Don't let this moment become a reason for more division. Yet, as his words bounced back from the crowd, the uncertainty about the unfolding confrontation gnawed at him. Could he reignite their commitment to peace in the face of such escalating tension? The hope they had built was suddenly a fragile tower teetering on the edge. Then, a sudden shout pierced through the crowd's roiling energy. They took him. Another voice, trembling with outrage, broke the air. They're taking someone without cause. Marcus's heart sank further. The urgency behind those words struck him like a heavy blow. A gathering of chaos was forming just beyond reach. Would the conversation he believed in shatter with each passing moment? He felt a well of frustration and despair churning within. Stay with me. He shouted, desperate for his community to remember their purpose. This is our moment to show who we are. Don't let fear force us into the darkness. But as his plea hung in the air, Marcus noticed something shifting in the crowd. People were beginning to push forward, unwilling to back down. He recognized the spark of defiance rising, and it terrified him. Could they find their way back to the dialogue they so desperately sought, or would they plunge into the very chaos they were fighting against? In the distance, sirens wailed, echoing the urgent atmosphere surrounding them. The reality of the situation pressed down on Marcus. Like an iron weight. This was more than a single moment, it was a reckoning. How would they choose to respond when everything they fought for was on the line? Things were spinning out of control, and even as he sensed their unity could bring them strength, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were fast approaching a defining moment, one that would leave scars or heal wounds. What path would they choose as they stood at this precipice? The officer raised his baton, a sharp motion that sent a wave of fear through the crowd. Marcus felt the tremor of uncertainty ripple through the sea of faces surrounding him. Tension hung thick in the air, like a storm about to break. People pressed closer, their voices rising, a chorus of alarm mixed with the raw energy of hope and resistance. The young man's defiance had sparked something that could quickly combust. Hey! Marcus called, trying to inject calm into the chaos. We can't fight them. We have to stand together. But his plea felt small against the din of the crowd, as anger pulsed and surged forward. Each heartbeat echoed the urgency of the moment. All around him, he could hear muffled exchanges, confused murmurs blending into a growing tide of confrontation. A woman nearby shouted for the crowd to remain peaceful, her voice chased by another person demanding the officers show proof of their intentions. Marcus's heart raced. They were on the edge, walking a tightrope between peace and chaos, and he didn't know which way they would fall. The officer in charge, his stern expression betraying no emotion, barked orders to his team. He urged them forward, and just like that, the tension snapped. The defensive line of officers advanced, a wall of blue slowly closing in around the young man. Marcus felt his pulse quicken, fear clawed at his throat. Step back. Listen to him. Someone shouted furiously, and another voice joined, what happened to our rights? We're being silenced. It was an eruption of voices demanding acknowledgement, a desperate plea that echoed throughout the crowd. Marcus moved closer to Jordan, who was wide-eyed with fear. What if it gets out of hand? Jordan asked, his voice trembling. What if someone gets hurt? I know, Marcus replied, trying to keep his own uncertainty at bay. But we need to show strength in unity, not violence. He caught the gaze of another friend, a middle-aged woman with tears in her eyes, and it struck him then a painful realization that they couldn't just talk anymore. They had to act. Let us surround him, Marcus decided, grounding himself. We have to create a human shield. We can't let them take him away like this. He grabbed Jordan's hand, turning to the others who looked on, hesitant but yearning for a guide. We can do this together. A moment of silence hung in the air, as if time held its breath. Then others began to step forward, moving toward the young man. There was uncertainty in their eyes, but a glimmer of resolve began to build. The ripple of change was starting, igniting a fire of courage that Marcus had hoped to see. As they pushed forward, more people joined in, forming an unyielding perimeter around the young man. The officers hesitated, their aggression thwarted by the unexpected show of solidarity. We are all in this together. A voice called out from the crowd, passionately urging others to join them. Marcus felt adrenaline coursing through his veins, but mixed with it was a sense of hope. They were standing for something bigger than themselves. This was not just about one individual, it was a statement that echoed through the heart of their community, but just as he thought they might have turned the tide, a louder bark from the officer sliced through the air. Step down now or face arrest. The ultimatum hung like a noose, tightening around their fragile unity. Brow furrowing, the reality of their predicament slammed into Marcus. What would they choose? Would they risk everything for this singular moment of defiance? As the tension swelled, he could sense the fragile balance teetering once again. Would they forge a new path together, or watch this moment of hope fade into despair? There was no time to think, every second counted, and as Marcus prepared to shout encouragement once more, he wondered a thought lurking like a shadow: what if their act of solidarity turned into something far more dangerous than anyone could predict? The shout pierced through Marcus's thoughts, a jolt of adrenaline that sent chills down his spine. What do we do? He turned to the crowd, his voice laced with urgency. We can't let fear divide us. Some faces looked back at him, uncertain, while others were ignited by the energy of his plea. They were standing on a precipice, a moment suspended between courage and hesitation. He could feel the tide of emotion swirling around him, each heartbeat echoing the collective spirit of those gathered. As he scanned the faces in front of him, he caught sight of a tall man with arms crossed, clearly uneasy. What if no one stands with us? He called out, his voice rising above the crowd. His eyes flickered with doubt, and Marcus felt as though the man's uncertainty was infectious, threatening to sweep through the group. Think about why we're here. Marcus shouted, his heart hammering. We are more than our fears. We're fighting for justice, for a voice that can't be silenced. With each word, the crowd seemed to lean in closer, the weight of their shared dream overcoming the drag of their fears. Walls began to dissolve between individuals, creating a thread of unity that was tangible. A young woman beside him stepped forward, her face fierce with determination. We are not alone. Every single one of us is here because we believe. A chant slowly began to rise from the crowd, echoing through the air, and like a wave crashing against the shore, it grew louder and more potent. We won. Back down. We won. Back down. Hands began to raise, voices joined in collective power, forging a line of solidarity that shielded the young man from the officers closing in. Marcus found himself buoyed by the words, by the passion surging around him. Despair began to lift, replaced by a vibrant rush of hope. Yet, even as he felt this swell of strength, he couldn't shake the nagging thought: how long could this last? What would happen next? The officer stepped closer, glaring at the tightly woven line of humanity in front of him. You are obstructing an arrest. Stand down, or face the consequences. Gasps mingled with the chant. Marcus felt a chill run through him as the reality of the officer's warning settled. The rows of blue uniforms shifted, tension crackling in the air like static electricity. Don't let them intimidate us. Someone shouted, echoing his sentiments. We're fighting for our rights. For all of us. A ripple of agreement ran through the crowd, people nodding, their resolve building as if they were drawing strength from one another. Jordan gripped Marcus's arm tighter. What if they really arrest us? His voice was a whisper, trembling but fierce with belief. What if someone gets hurt? Then we stand together. Marcus replied, his voice steadier than he felt. Together we are stronger than all this fear. But uncertainty still gnawed at him. They were perched on the edge of a moment, a decision waiting to be made. The crowd felt alive, pulsing with energy, yet teetering precariously on the brink. In that instant, the world around him faded, leaving only the reverberation of their chant and the weight of choices looming over their heads. With the officers inching forward, Marcus saw silhouettes of fellow fighters around him, faces determined, hearts on fire. It was a primal moment, a decision steeped in courage versus the easy choice of retreat. Would they hold their ground, or would their unity shatter under pressure? As the first officer raised his baton again, the energy shifted dramatically. On one side, the police prepared to push through. On the other, the crowd stood firm, trembling but unyielding. Marcus inhaled deeply, preparing to take a stand amidst the chaos that swirled around him. Would they become a beacon of hope, or get swept away in the tide of violence that threatened to engulf them all? And just as the first baton came down, a new voice broke through the shouting chaos, drawing Marcus's attention like a compass in a storm. It was a voice filled with authority, unyielding and wrapped in the promise of resolution. Stop this now. Immediate cease of all action. Who was this new figure, and what did this mean for the fate of those standing strong? The crowd froze at the commanding voice, a blend of confusion and hope washing over their faces. Every eye shifted, held captive by the authority woven into those words. The tension hung in the air, thick as fog, as the officer paused, conflicted. Who said that? A second officer looked around, clearly frustrated, trying to keep the situation under control. But the chant, once simmering, surged again, infused with curiosity and resolve. What is going on? Murmurs ricocheted through the crowd. Marcus glanced to his left, catching the young woman's eye. Her face lit up with a spark of defiance. Maybe they know we're not going back down. She whispered fiercely. Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows, striding purposefully towards the front. Her presence filled the space, commanding the crowd's attention. Approaching with purpose, she was dressed in a crisp blazer, the kind that signified power and ambition. Her long hair was pulled back, strands framing a face steeled with determination. Marcus couldn't remember seeing her before, but the crowd stirred with whispers of recognition. Listen up. She shouted, her voice sharp and clear. I am Special Prosecutor Elena Whitfield. I'm here to ensure justice is served today. Her eyes scanned the officers, then swept over the crowd, and Marcus could feel everyone hang on her every word. Ms. Whitfield. A young man gasped, barely audible, but a tremor of hope ignited around him. Radical changes start with us standing together, she continued emphatically. I know fear stands in the way of progress, but I'm here to remind you that standing united is power. The officers shifted uncomfortably, their hands inching towards their belts, but Elena held her ground. You will do no more harm to these people tonight. She declared, the fierceness in her voice echoing over the crowd. An explosion of emotion surged from the masses. We won't back down. They roared even louder, emboldened by her presence. Jordan leaned closer to Marcus. What is going to happen now? His voice trembled with tension. I don't know, Marcus admitted, but it feels like hope is finally breaking through. Elena raised a hand to quiet the crowd. Tonight is not just about this moment, she said, her voice filling the charged air. This is where we break chains, where our fight continues. We will not be silenced any longer. The energy shifted, a new determination sparking through the crowd as they rallied behind her words. Tackling injustice was a steep hill to climb, but the presence of the prosecutor became a tangible thread of empowerment. As the officers recoiled slightly, Unsure how to respond to her unwavering stance, Marcus felt a spark nested deep within him. A glimmer of belief that perhaps, against all odds, they could shift the tide. But then a younger officer, still fresh-faced and nervous, moved forward hesitantly. "We have to follow protocol." "Protocol?" Elena interrupted, her voice rising above the noise. "When has protocol ever protected the vulnerable?" Her passion pulsed through the crowd, igniting a wildfire of voices. Marcus felt a rush of energy. This was the shift they needed, this was the moment where they might truly transform their fears into action. Yet, beneath the explosion of power and passion, doubt lingered. Would the officers listen? How would they respond to Elena's defiance? He felt the weight of everything on their shoulders, a moment suspended in time and uncertainty, and then he heard the first crackle of a radio from within the police line. "Get back up, we have a situation." His heart raced. What would backup mean for them? Would this moment of hope spark real change, or herald a darker outcome? With a collective breath, the crowd prepared for the next chapter, where hope and fear would collide once again. Narrator. Which way would the tide turn now? The tension hung in the air, a thick mist of uncertainty as Marcus and the crowd absorbed the weight of Elena's resolute presence. Every heartbeat pulsed with the collective anxiety of dreams at stake. As the young officer's radio crackled with urgency, fear settled in like a cold wind. What would happen next? Elena stood taller, her voice cutting through the apprehension. This is not just about fear, this is about standing together, challenging the status quo. We will not be intimidated. Her words sparked something. It was as if someone had flipped a switch, transforming the fear into defiance and solidarity. Don't let them take us down. Someone shouted from the back, and the crowd stirred, voices united, hearts racing with fire. Marcus could feel the energy shift, a collective strength woven through murmurs of agreement. People began to chant once more, "We won, T back down." With every repetition, their resolve solidified. It was electric, igniting a fire in Marcus's chest. This was the tipping point. The lead officer exchanged a glance with his partner, their expressions shifting from authority to uncertainty. The tension was palpable, and as backup approached, a new layer of fear crept back into the atmosphere. "Stand firm." Someone yelled, echoing Marcus's sentiments, and slowly but surely, the mantra became a shield. "Don't back down." Marcus couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility pull at his chest. He looked to Elena, who stood like a lighthouse in a storm, a beacon of hope guiding their mission. He stepped forward, joining her at the forefront. "This is about justice." He called out, words spilling from his heart. "It's about ensuring our community isn't defined by bias or fear." The crowd cheered in agreement, voices rising higher, merging into one anthem of truth. They wouldn't let the moment slip away. Elena nodded, defensively but with warmth. Justice means protecting the vulnerable, ensuring no one feels silenced. That includes all of you standing here today. Your voices matter. Another officer stepped forward cautiously, attempting to regain control. "But you're obstructing an arrest. We can't allow this to escalate." "Oh, but it has escalated." Elena retorted, her passion cracking the icy facade. "And you have a choice. You can either act with empathy or perpetuate the cycle of injustice." A murmur rolled through the crowd, voices mingling with hope and caution, but the spark ignited a firestorm of agreement. People began to shout, their stories powerful, personal narratives weaving together a tapestry of shared experiences. "Speak the truth." Someone yelled. "Tell them what we face." Each story fueled the momentum, and with every word, their bond grew tighter. Marcus felt renewed purpose coursing through him, intertwining with the collective heartbeat of the community. He stepped further into the fray, determined to be part of this moment, and then, something shifted again. As backup arrived, they were met not with hostility but curiosity. Officers began to listen instead of obstructing, the air thick with a different kind of energy, a chance for understanding. Those stories could change everything, Marcus thought. This is their moment. As the young officer who had been hesitant earlier turned his gaze toward Elena, hesitation mixed with realization crossed his face. "What you're saying, it makes sense," he said quietly, his voice breaking through the rising tension. Suddenly, the atmosphere cracked like glass, expectations shattering. Officers exchanged wary glances, and Marcus sensed a shift. Dialogue was brewing, buried beneath the protective exterior of authority, a chance to bridge an unsteady divide. A woman from the crowd stepped forward, her face reflective of so many who had stood on the sidelines. "Can we do this together? Can we find a way to improve our community?" Her hope felt like a stone cast in a pond, rippling out as more voices joined in agreement. "Let us work together," Marcus urged again, his voice unwavering. "We can show that Maplewood can be better, not just in words, but in action. This is our chance to unite for lasting change." Like a wildfire fueled by dry grass, energy surged through the crowd, unwavering and fierce. Elena stood firm, affirming their cries. "Let us schedule community meetings, gather stories, and engage with all of you. We can build a safer, more inclusive community." As hope ignited a furious flame, a realization dawned across the faces surrounding Marcus. They had the power to change their narrative, not just for themselves, but for the entire town. Each face shimmered with anticipation, united by a purpose larger than themselves. Voices swelled around him, identities and dreams intertwined as they forged a path toward a shared vision. This was more than a moment, this was a movement taking form amidst chaos. As the officers pulled back, allowing space for understanding, Marcus felt the surge of hope wash over him like the sun breaking through clouds. The community stood as one, ready to fight together. The fear that had once constrained him transformed into a powerful resolve, propelling them all forward. Together, they would reweave the fabric of their town. Together, they would emerge from the shadows of fear into the light of unity and understanding. This is just the beginning, Marcus thought, heart swelling with determination and joy. As he gazed into the crowd filled with passionate faces ready for battle, he whispered, "Together, we will rise." And as the last breaths of daylight dipped below the horizon, a resounding cheer filled the air, a declaration of unity, a promise of hope, and a commitment to change. Every heart was lifted. Change was in the air. Now was their moment to step up and begin anew. This is the time to act, to rise up. Are you ready to take a stand with us? You need to subscribe now to this channel to follow this incredible journey. Leave a like to keep the momentum going, and comment below on how you feel about this transformation. We can't do this without your voices. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this change. Don't wait not even one more second, make your voice heard.